Shawn Hirst, Senior Director, Mission Operations, and Paige Carbone, Regional Executive Director of MED. John Corlett, Vice President, Public and Government Affairs, and Alec Slapke, Director of Public and Government Affairs, AAA Northeast, and Luca, Member of Kansas Christian Students.
Do you have Lizzie Rahman? Did you announce Lizzie Rahman from Families for Safe Streets?
I did.
Get your chair. No, it's okay. It's okay. Go.
Paper, scissors,
We're team. We're fair.
welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having us today. It's been a long day, so I appreciate it. Hanging in there with us. But Shawn Hirst, Senior Director of Mission Operations for MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving. I represent 20 states across MAD. I oversee 20 states, but this one is near and dear. I'm a Long Island resident, a lifelong New Yorker, so obviously I'm here personally and professionally. With me is my counterpart, Paige Carbone. She's the Regional Executive Director for New York, so we're kind of here today. We're representing the 1 million victims that MAD has served since our founding 45 years ago, including the victims that have shown up here today. So obviously Timothy and Andrea, Tanya, I know, and then Joanna representing her beautiful husband Sherman, Lisa McMorris and her son Andrew, who was killed when he was 12, and Juliana, her son Angel, was 9 years old when he was killed by a drug-impaired driver. So I just want to start with some quick data. Impaired driving, as we know, is 100% preventable choice. It's a crime and it's a choice. It's not an accident. 2 out of 3 people will be impacted by impaired driving in their lifetime, which always stands out to me when I look in a crowd, a room full of people like this, and I know how many people are affected, and then I know the ripple effect of what this looks like, because it is not just the immediate family, it extends to the next layer of the family and the entire community, and it just rips communities apart. Every 42 minutes, someone is killed in an impaired driving crash, and every 2 minutes, someone is injured in an impaired driving crash throughout the country. And on a daily basis, we are sharing the road with 300,000 impaired drivers every day. So those are very real statistics, I think, to hit it home. And so, obviously, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, it started as a, alcohol kind of only, I would say, but we have certainly evolved in the last number of years, evident by our tagline, impaired driving ends here. So I want to start by reminding everyone that alcohol is a drug, and it is a drug that kills or injures someone every 85 seconds, and we know it's a lethal drug when it is combined with driving, so we cannot let up our fight to eliminate drunk driving, but of course, impairment caused by other drugs and combination of drugs is obviously a rapidly growing problem on our roadways and something that MAD is actively addressing, including supporting the drug driving bill. I think we're going into our 5th year of lobbying for this bill. I left some literature for you there. MAD has top tier 1 priorities of legislation that we actively lobby for, and anything with tightening our laws around drug driving remains a tier 1 priority for us. So this is something that we are not letting loose on. What is undisputed is that impaired substances and driving do not mix, and law enforcement and the entire justice system need all the tools we can provide to keep our roads safe. Those tools include sobriety checkpoints and saturation controls, roadside oral fluid testing, and e-warrants to expedite obtaining breath and blood samples. Across the state of New York, we need to untie the hands of law enforcement. Right now, as we've heard all day today, officers can only charge dangerously impaired drivers if the impairing substance is identified and on the controlled substance list. This obviously creates a huge problem in an ever-changing landscape where new impairing substances are constantly emerging, including what we heard today, like 500 new ones just in a year that aren't on this list. Adding to the challenge is that many drivers know that refusing a blood test can get them off the hook because the substance that is impairing them won't be identified. And also, as we heard today, they won't get treatment, and so the recidivism we know is high as well. New York is one of only 4 states. We've learned this today. Every driver who chooses to operate their vehicle while impaired by any substance or combinations of substances should be held accountable every time. If they aren't held accountable the first time, it will again and again happen until someone is seriously injured or killed. The average person somebody drives impaired before getting caught is 80 times. So 80, yes. Drunk driving laws are very complex. Attempting to stop drug-impaired driving is even more complicated. Beyond more education, underage prevention efforts, training of law enforcement, and high visibility enforcement, there is not a one-size-fits-all approach to stop the rise in substance-impaired driving. MAD tackles it with many different pillars of our mission, including prevention and supporting the efforts of law enforcement, and of course supporting our victims. But we know we cannot do it alone. For 2026, MAD's hope is that the New York State Legislature will act quickly to close this loophole that allows dangerously impaired drivers to continue driving without consequences if they are high on a substance that isn't on the statutory list or the substance can't be named. MAD will continue to support this effort because it is necessary to save lives and prevent injuries caused by substance-impaired driving. That's my written stuff, but from a personal standpoint, I really just want to emphasize that we take hundreds and hundreds of meetings, both in district and coming to Albany every year. You asked about kind of the efforts, what we need to do. So we need more crowds and we need people to show up. Our victims show up. They are the biggest tool in our toolbox. They are certainly the strongest people that we know. We support them day in and day out with everything they want to do. But a victim who has to retell their story hundreds and hundreds of times and relive the worst moments of their lives to see progress and then every year to see none is just a emotion that I cannot describe as somebody who works in this field. It's real and raw, and it pains both of us as, you know, we're employed by MAD, but our heart is here. And we show up here to do these things for them. It's not for us, it's for them, it's for their loved ones, their families. We're not gonna stop. But we do recognize that, you know, this is the year. We have to get it done. We can't keep returning to Albany year over year. And, you know, every time we're met with opposition or questions about, you know, equity, or we come back, we have the data to prove that this is bipartisan, this has nothing to do with, you know, being on one side of the table or not, but yet we're still roadblocked or met with a standstill. So, you know, we thank you for championing this and being here and listening to us. And I know you asked what else can we do. We're here. We're here to take those meetings, to talk with you. We want to know who those people are opposing this, what 13 votes we need, what meetings we have to take. We're going to take them. Yep, we're going to take all of them, multiple. We're going to demand and push, and we're going to do it, but they're really going to do it, and we're just going to be behind them, supporting them. So thank you so much.
Just that we're committed to working with our victims and survivors. They inspire us, and really they're the true heroes. And I echo what Shawn said. Having to relive those moments, the worst moments of their life, they do it, and they do it for change. And so I think we will continue as a MAD community to put our pain to purpose and do what it takes so that we can end impaired driving for good. And just to reiterate what you said before, Senator Ryan, is impaired is impaired, and that's one of the first things that I heard when I came to MAD. And so being able to just speak to that and to share those stories, I think, speaks volumes. Thank you for having us today. Thank you for being our partner. When we say that we want to partner with you and do what we need to do, we do truly mean it. So we hope that our efforts will see some movement this year, and you have our commitment. So thanks again for having us
Good afternoon, Senator Rahman, Sitting Under my name is Shawn Corlett, I'm the AAA Vice President, and thank you for having us. I do have a written statement, but I'll submit that for the record in the interest of time. I know it's been a really long day, but thank you for all your hard work on this. We have 3 million members in New York State, so to answer your questions, I'm happy to maybe enlist them, maybe we do personal meetings, on booths, lobbying on the ground, so whatever we can do to help you. And I'd also like to thank Maureen McCormick for her tireless work. I've known Maureen many, many years, and she's very passionate about this. And I thought you were going to retire.
Nope, I don't think it's almost crossed the finish line.
So again, anything we can do to support you. I know it's not easy getting things done at all. I'm quite honestly, I'm not really sure where the opposition is coming from. So it seems like a bipartisan issue. I don't know.
MAD and AAA have just joined forces, actually, starting in January,
Yes.
in a 5-year agreement to work together to see impaired driving reduction by 20%. So I think you'll see us teamed up
Yes,
together
absolutely.
in Albany.
I like that. I like that 3 million people. Those are few applicants.
Yeah.
Hi, thank you for having me, and my name is Lizzie Rahman. I'm with Families for Safer Streets. And before I talk about our group, let me tell you my personal story. I'll be brief. This is my son, and he was 22 years old when he was killed on Queens Boulevard by a reckless truck driver. And ever since, at that time in 2008, there were no organizations or no movement for street safety, so I had to fight by myself. So I started, and then other organizations were formed, and we formed later, like after almost 6 years, Families for Safer Streets. This group, and before I tell you about the Families for Safer Streets, my son, he was a rapper, he was a poet, he was only 22 years old, but he's a number. He's a number that killed on Queens Boulevard, which was known as Boulevard of Death. But a lot of people died, so he is one of the numbers. But to me, he is not a number, he is my family. And after his death, not my family, my community, my other family members, they all got, devastated. So it's a loss for the community as well. He could contribute so much to the community. Everything was lost because of a reckless truck driver. So I know it has nothing to, I don't know if the driver had anything to do with drugs or drinks, I don't know. But the thing is, the death, the loss is same everywhere. It doesn't matter how you lose your child or your loved one by a drunk driver, by a drugged driver, or by a reckless driver. So I want to prevent all this, and I want to show my solidarity, and my group, we want to show the solidarity with drug driving, those, and anyway, so it's emotional, it's been a long time, but it makes me upset, and we want to prevent. There is a photo you can see on the screen, that's a happy time. My husband, my mother, my daughter, and myself, and my son, who was really young, so it's 2 years, 3 years before his death. But that family is not happy anymore, and personally, I don't want to see that devastation in any family. And I have been trying to improve by myself, then we formed the group, Families for Safer Streets, and ever since we have, it's a new group comparatively, but we made a huge difference in New York City in improving traffic violence. So we want to work together. We have 500 members, and can you put the I mean, it's, our mission, you can see that we are trying to prevent all the traffic epidemics or deaths. We put up a traffic safety light, speed cameras around the schools, and other safety measures. And whatever way we can work with you, we'll work, and we don't want to see any other lives lost. We are, we are in support with drug drivers, prevention, whatever we can do, we'll do it, and you have our support. Thank you so much for
Prior to coming to the State Assembly, I served in the Suffolk County Legislature for 6 terms, 12 years. And I remember from year 1 until my last year of service, every single year I would be a guest along with a representative of MAD to give a presentation on making better choices. And particularly during prom and graduation time, and it was an in-person requirement, right? You couldn't get your ticket unless you and your guardian got there and stayed for the entire program, and it was a big deal. I'd like to think that you made an impact. It was always an excellent representative of our local district attorney's office. There was always a defense attorney to talk about the downside and the impact that it can have in a lot of different ways, including financially on a family when you make these very, very bad and dangerous decisions. Years later, they made it virtual. They had me come in and do a videotape, and there hasn't been another one done since. Those in-person events are long past. They don't have those same requirements. They're not getting that information out. They require you to, watch it online, and nobody ever really does. In fact, the last time around, the last prom and graduation season, several friends of mine who had graduating seniors would say something like, did you just give that speech? You have like not a gray hair. How is that even possible? Because that video is 10 years old at this point. I bring all of that up because it seems like, anyway, that in years past, there had been a more aggressive effort. There had been more in-person participation. There had been buy-in, at least on the part of our local school districts, and tried to convey a little personal responsibility to the graduating seniors as well as their parents. I'd be interested to know to what extent, if any, you are seeing your organizations, other like organizations, being involved in something like that. And then when we talk about, and the Senator asks, what can we and should we be doing together? We found that these kinds of discussions in person for real, and seeing families who've lost loved ones and seeing law enforcement that can help make that case was very, very compelling. I'll just share with you, I'd also ask everybody the question. My youngest boy right now is 23 years old. None of them get behind the wheel. They all call the Uber.
They sure do.
They're all making better choices. So I'd love to get your take on, that's a good thing, of course.
Oh, yeah.
And yet all we see are numbers going up and, and death on our streets and dangerous driving that surrounds all of us. That should never be happening, but certainly not these days when you have every opportunity to avoid that. When you say you have a choice, it's never been more of a bad choice. So I'd love to get your take on what you're seeing these days and the kinds of things that we could all be doing together to get back to maybe some of those days where we're just a little more aggressive on making sure that the message gets out.
I mean, for us, we're still educating hundreds of thousands of kids a year. So we are very much in many school districts on Long Island, all across New York, as well as just all across the country. So we've actually grown our underage drinking prevention programs by over 3% per year. And that's just, when we say underage drinking prevention, that includes educating parents as well. So it is not just underage youth, but our programs address not just the driving, but it's just car safety in general for younger kids, 4th and 5th graders, as well as then exactly what you're saying, healthy decision-making, consequences, and of course leading into high school. We do see a lot of schools that require seniors to, in order to get their parking passes, they have to take that in person. So I think the engagement is still there, just around the time of year could shift a little bit. We have a new promposal program that is geared absolutely at taking the pledge around prom, and we also see a trend of that age group. I have a 20-year-old. They don't even know what impairment is behind a wheel. I hope that means they're putting me out of business. That's literally how I feel. We have tools today, and we have apps, and we have things that make it a lot easier. We also have, I think, a generation of parents that are raising that new generation that want to change the landscape of what they're seeing on the roads. At least, you know, the majority, I should say. I can't speak for everybody. So I do think the education that they're getting from home as well is different from a million years ago. The demographic and the age and things like that of what we see is still very much, it's not those younger, newer drivers, right? So we know flipping a script and changing people's perceptions. I mean, seatbelts. Seatbelt, there was no law around seatbelts. How many people, I know for me, I get in the car, it's the first thing I do before I even start the car. We're conditioned, but that's because I was born into the generation where it was a law, so there was no other option. If you're not born into or brought up in a generation of something, of this being opposition, such opposed or education around it, it's just a learned behavior, and it takes time. So I do feel that, same with us implementing .08, and now we're fighting for .05. These things are, it takes time for, I think, generations to learn the rules of the road, but I think there's always going to be people who don't regard the laws or are sick and need help, and so, but we are still seeing that in-person engagement, so I do want to assure you that, and locally, if you want to get involved with our programs, that's another way we can absolutely partner.
Oh, thank you. And, I have a 23-year-old, a 21-year-old, an 18-year-old, and a 12-year-old, and I know, I'm very happy they're not getting behind the wheel of the car, and I know this because I go to pick them up.
That's right, that's what I'm saying, we're the generation.
My wife knows. But no, thank you. And I'm sorry, but I admire your strength.
Thank you.
Assembly Member Stern, you are always welcome to come see Elisa.
That's
Moore.
right.
I was just going to say, I couldn't, so you asked what you could do. There are a lot of principals and school districts out there that still feel a little bit apprehensive about putting us and letting us say we have to talk to Carl Borelli about this. Is that's the biggest, one of the bigger things that goes back. So when we talk with MAD, I've done choices and MAD, where we come in and we talk with both of them. And we go in there and we show them the scary part, and then we talk about what we can do. Well, what you can do is put up proclamations so that those principals have cover for it. Those superintendents have cover. So when the parents get mad that my baby boy can't hear the story, you have cover. So if you ask them what you can do, that's what you can do. Sorry.
All I was going to do was invite them to a choices program.
All right, how are
It's
we
a pleasure to welcome Sabra Jones, Regional Toxicology Liaison for National Highway Traffic Safety Administration Region. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I know we're...
Thanks for hanging in with us.
Yes. So as you said, my name is Dr. Sabra Jones, and I am the Regional Toxicology Liaison that supports New York, as well as the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration Regions 1, 2, and 3. I previously was able to support Region 5 as well, so I do have kind of a national perspective on toxicology labs, and traffic safety across the United States, in addition to my other RTLs. But I have been asked to address why the current legislation for impaired driving and tying a specific drug to a list of drugs is scientifically outdated and ineffective in addressing impaired driving. Sure. So as we already heard, New York, along with other 3 states, have such a list. And with that list, it makes it very challenging to understand the drug impaired driving landscape in a drug study. We heard also too from several folks the fact that our toxicology labs are inundated with an enormous amount of new and emerging drugs. And I won't go down the list, we already heard them already, but with that, we know that these substances impair driving and make it impossible for somebody to safely operate a motor vehicle, and they fall outside the current legal framework for New York, and that leaves dangerously impaired drivers on the road. We heard about nitrous oxide, commonly known as whippets. It's a great example. We see an increase in misuse of it. We see it being associated with impaired driving as well as serious crashes. It causes a loss of coordination. It can cause profound disorientation, brief loss of consciousness, and all of these things make it impossible for somebody to drive safely. With that, the deadly driving bill is designed to close that gap by making the impairment not being associated with the statutory list. Toxicology, it plays an essential role in impaired driving investigations, and our toxicology labs here in New York provide highly accurate and reliable testing. But a toxicology report alone cannot tell you if somebody is impaired at the time at which they were driving. A positive test simply shows us that there is a drug in that driver's system when they took that particular sample. It does not tell us how that drug is going to specifically affect that individual behind the wheel. People respond to drugs in different ways for a variety of reasons. For example, how they took the substance. Smoke it, did they swallow it? How long have they been taking that particular drug? How long has it been since they took the substance? And whether or not they took other substances along with it, such as alcohol. These differences are going to matter enormously. Cocaine's effect, for example, they're going to change depending on if the concentration is rising or falling in that particular individual. Even prescription drugs, for some individuals, they're going to be very impairing at therapeutic doses, whereas others might not see the same level of impairment. Because of these large individual differences in how drugs affect people, supporting a single drug concentration for drugs other than alcohol is just not scientifically supported. Unlike alcohol, where we have decades of research that supports the level of concentration in the blood with a degree of impairment, that just does not exist scientifically for other drugs. Thankfully, taking a per se level or a zero tolerance approach in New York has not happened because it would incorrectly classify some people as impaired, whereas others it would fail to identify their impairment. So given these realities, toxicology is going to be most effective when used together with behavioral and observational evidence. Laboratory findings help support and explain the officer's observations of impairment. This is going to include dangerous driving, poor coordination, divided attention problems, or signs consistent with drug impairment. Toxicology does not replace those observations, it supports them. The combination of trained officers' observations, standardized evaluations, the use of roadside oral fluid testing tools, and laboratory confirmation methods provides the strongest scientifically sound basis for identifying drug-impaired drivers. It's also important to emphasize that well-staffed, well-equipped forensic toxicology labs are essential to supporting New York's impaired driving enforcement system. Detecting emerging drugs like those we talked about, as well as validating additional sample matrices like oral fluid, and expanding the scope of testing, these all require appropriate personnel and instrumentation for the labs. And without that continued investment, it would be impossible to support the traffic safety enforcement here in New York. The deadly driving bill provides a modern, science-based solution. It shifts the focus to functional impairment. It supports cases involving multiple drugs, supports our law enforcement officers, including our drug recognition experts, and allows allows the use of validated tools such as roadside screening and confirmation methods. Oral fluid is particularly helpful because it reveals recent drug use, especially when we're dealing with cases like with marijuana, where the concentration in the blood can drop drastically. And if there's a delay in getting that sample, we lose the evidence. Forensic laboratories in New York already have comprehensive analytical methods that can detect hundreds of substances, including these emerging drugs, long before they ever appear on a statutory list. This bill allows the courts to use this science effectively rather than being restricted by outdated drug schedules. Every impaired driving fatality is preventable. The current law ties investigators' hands, and this bill will untie them. It aligns New York with the scientific consensus that impairment, not a specific molecule, is what endangers the public. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Two very quick questions. First of all, are there any national studies or analysis that has focused on maybe some of these unlisted items that have been showing up in toxicology?
Absolutely. We actually, because a lot of our laboratories, unlike New York State Police, which is really well funded, has really great methods, not all labs are going to have those same methods. And so we have groups like NPS Discovery, which is housed here in the United States. They actually track these novel psychoactive substances. Similar to the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, actually looked it up. There's to date, as of October 2025, over 1,500 novel psychoactive substances have been submitted to their laboratories for analysis. But when we look at the emerging drugs, if it's challenging, we really are reliant on groups like NPS Discovery to collect that data, because not all labs can test for it.
And we've seen a couple of slides with unlisted substances,
Yes.
but I'm wondering if you have a feel for what is the number one or number two of those most unfortunately popular that we're seeing.
Yeah, so we have several. I just gave a presentation on the nitazine compounds. They are synthetic opioids, sort of like your fentanyl analogs. But they are certainly in the top level of those emerging drugs. And there are tons of them. But even substances like carfentanil, which we've had around for quite some time, just in Q3 of 2025, we saw a huge emergence of it into our seized drug material and also our toxicology cases. So fentanyl analogs are still a huge issue. Following that, you're going to see your designer benzodiazepines, which are going to have adverse effects on somebody's ability to drive properly, just like the opioids will. And then to a lesser degree, you're going to have your stimulants, your synthetic stimulants, and then you're going to have your synthetic cannabinoids. Here in the United States, synthetic cannabinoids are still alive and well, like your K2 or your spice compounds, but with the prevalency of legalized marijuana, honestly, the Delta 8, Delta 10, THC, those substances have sort of taken their place. And those are substances that are synthesized from CBD. So between our legalized states that have marijuana legalized for adult use and the proliferation of the THC analogs like Delta 8 and Delta 10, those are going to be the top ones for our cannabinoid group. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So I think, so in 30 seconds here, I appreciate you, thank you. I want to make sure that before if you have a card,
Oh,
or if
yes,
not,
absolutely.
okay, and I'll just take that because I want to do a follow-up. I want to learn a little bit more about, what it takes in toxicology reports, timeframes, and better support. And I'd like to hear you saying that you're supporting that. It's not just well, this is what's happening inside. It's going to be a field sobriety test. And then this will complement that. We're not necessarily complement to a certain extent, or will prove that. And I like to hear that, and I think other people will, other lawmakers will. So I will follow up with you because I have a lot of questions, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
And thank you for coming in.
Yes,
Thanks for hanging in there with us.
Yes,
flew in from Massachusetts.
I
Thank
did not
you. The last, it's not a speaker, thank God, for them and everybody. It is a pre-recorded
We are going to
statement.
be hearing from Dr. Lisa Rucker, internist, Jacoby Medical Center.
Yes.
Hello, I'm Lisa Rucker, General Internist at Jacoby Medical Center at Bronx. A proposed drug driving bill that closes the loophole requiring impairing drugs to be listed by name should be passed. In short, nobody should drive a vehicle while impaired. As a doctor, I know there are some causes of impairment that are disease-related and some that are drug-related. In terms of safety, however, the cause is not important. Getting the driver off the road is what is important. Disease-related impairment is not a matter of choice and requires medical attention. The choice to use impairing substances and drive requires a different response. Regarding drivers with medical causes of impairment, under the proposal, cops will be taught to recognize the different presentations of disease impairment versus substance impairment. Drug recognition evaluations make these distinctions. Also, the streamlined bill has added a medical defense as a safety net protection to drivers with medical reasons for impairment. These bills would deal primarily with criminalizing all drug-related causes of impairment while driving. If the impairment is drug-related, then regardless of the drug or any other substance, for the public safety, there should be prosecution of the offending driver. Working in the ER early in my career and later in primary care, I've observed the devastation caused by impaired driving traffic crashes. Death or permanent disability for the drivers, for the passengers, and for the innocent bystanders, and all of it preventable. Here's an explanation of what needs to be changed. Under the current law, there is a list of drugs known to cause impairment. If an impaired driver is found to be using any of these drugs, he or she can be prosecuted. However, the list is finite and is never up to date. For example, let's say drugs A, B, C, and D are listed in the law, but new designer drug Z is not. If a driver uses drug Z and is impaired solely because the list has not been updated, he or she cannot be prosecuted for impairment due to this loophole in the current law. If a driver's impairment is drug-related, whether or not the offending drug is listed, there need to be protections for society afforded by prosecution of the offending driver. As a secondary benefit, offenders can be linked to appropriate care for their drug use. Thank you for listening to me. Please support passage of a bill that closes the loophole requiring the drug to be on the list.
I just wanted to let you know, for whatever record there is, that Dr. Rucker is also representative of the 12,000 members of the New York chapter of the American College of Physicians. And that agency, that organization, has a resolution in place for got to be at least 15 years supporting closing this loophole as a public health issue. The Public Health Association is a member of the coalition also. Dr. Rucker is only not here today. She's been so dedicated to this since about 15 years because her husband is having surgery. So thank you for allowing her to use a video.
And Maureen, I would love to, if there is such a thing as a copy of that resolution from the organization.
It's yours. I'll send it
That
to
would be
you.
great to have. Yeah.
And I want to just thank all the people who I invited here to speak because I get a lot of applause by inviting people I know. But thank you very much.
Thanks, Maureen. And I just want to say, because we are, in fact, making a record here today, first of all, thank you to my outstanding staff for being with us all day today and doing such a great job of bringing this all together. I know Senator Ryan feels the same way about his outstanding staff as well. It was good to see you. The office of our great Suffolk County District Attorney, Ray Tierney, and Maureen and Megan, and your outstanding team. It's great to see everybody. Wonderful job. And to everybody that shared the day with us, sharing their stories, sharing their professionalism, sharing their advocacy and their guidance, it is much appreciated. And so we'll look forward to seeing everybody early and often up in Albany.
Yes,
Thank you for being
Thank
with
you,
us.
Rose.